find that interview valuable? Great! Now be an awesome human and go and leave a review because it helps the podcast out so much. Want to read the show notes? Check out thechildren'sbookauthorpodcast.com. Want to find out more about me, Eleanor Page? Find me at eleanorpage.com or come and say hello on social at Eleanor Page Books. Until next time, keep writing and keep learning. Welcome back to the Children's Book Author Podcast. It's been a little while since I've posted an interview. I've been crazy busy. It has been nuts this year. I bet you can relate. I don't think I've talked to a single person who is not back on full throttle. No more lazing around COVID style, I reckon. That is done and dusted. We are all into the pace. And, you know, maybe there's a bit of adjustment to that pace because I reckon everyone's going to collapse at Christmas time, which will be, well, not funny, but probably well needed. Let's hope it's a beautiful collapse under the Christmas tree with lots of wrapping paper and presents surrounding. And I don't know, what do you drink in your part of the world, depending where you are? I'm in Australia, so we'll be having something cold and fizzy. And if you're in a colder part, I don't know, what do they drink? Eggnog at Christmas? That's what the television shows tell me. So there you go. Today, I do have an interview for you, and I'm so excited to share it with you. For those of you who are learning how to draw, you will no doubt have heard of Lisa Glanz. If you have not heard of Lisa Glanz, what have you been doing? You've been learning how to draw from the wrong people, especially picture book stuff. She is just, oh my goodness, if you draw on Procreate, I'm not even just saying this because I'm seriously not saying this because I interviewed Lisa Glanz. I went and asked Lisa Glanz if she'd be on my little podcast thinking, oh, she's never going to say yes. And she said yes. And her Procreate brushes are absolutely the best. If you just go and purchase all her Procreate brushes and you're learning how to draw in Procreate, you will never, ever need another brush. I don't think there's a single thing I work on where I don't use her brushes. They're just, I don't know, there's something else. We talk about all that. Gosh, I don't even know what to call the title of this interview. Perhaps I call it Learning How to Draw, Business, Life, How to Be Uniquely Yourself. So many things that we talked about. It doesn't matter whether you're drawing or not. You are going to love listening to Lisa's advice and wisdom and heart and soul. They all just come absolutely shining through in this interview. So before I get out of the way and let you listen to the interview, I've been very busy behind the scenes because I did make the decision to finally step out and teach, facilitate, guide other people how to write, publish, market their books, their children's books, and how to build a profitable business. So there's 4 modules that there are going to be, and it's called the Children's Book Author Blueprint. Of course, in alignment with my current brand of the Children's Book Author, it's going to be the Children's Book Author Blueprint, and it will cover all 4 modules. But the first module is 33 days to a written book, and it is starting on the 3rd of October 2024. So if you're listening to this after that, never mind, you can still go and buy it. Hopefully, if it's now available by the time you're listening to this, go to eleanorpage.com/learn. How's that for a little commercial? eleanorpage.com/learn. And you should find the latest information on it. But if you are listening to it right now, which is the 19th of September, 2024, on the day that this podcast comes out, which also happens to be my daughter's 18th birthday today. Hooray, hurrah, hooroo. Yes, it's going to be a great day for cake and food. And in any case, 33 days to a written book. I did do a tiny, tiny little baby launch because this is sort of the trial run. And by that, I mean that when the course all comes out in its entirety, it will be available to purchase and watch at your pace and ease. But 33 days to a written book is being run live on Zoom and then will be subsequently chopped up into tiny digestible pieces and put on a course platform. But it's going to be live. And I put that for sale and 5 people bought it and I had space for 10 people to buy it. Now, that is now you might say 5's not a lot, but here's a lesson in advance. Okay, so out of everyone on Instagram, maybe 2,000 followers, 15 signed up on the mailing list. And so this is important statistical information to take on board, right? Because everything in life is numbers. There is no, I'm not good enough, or I didn't reach enough people. It's just percentages of percentages. And so of those 2,000 so people, 15 people, well, how many saw the posts on Instagram, right? That would be smaller again. 15 went on the mailing list. 5 of those bought it. So actually, that's quite high statistics, very successful. And that was for sale. I'm teaching you all this so that you can learn from my experience. You know me by now. I am completely an open book. 5 people, $99 was the price of the first module of the 4 modules. And the other 3 won't be available till next year. This one's being run now, and it is how to write a picture book, how to write a junior fiction, how to write a middle grade, plots, story structures. Oh my gosh, we're going to cover so many things, concepts, getting your own process, using your intuition, and most importantly, getting into a beautiful flow so that by the end of 33 days, you have a book, or at least most of a book. And I can't wait to teach it. And so many things to say today. Then I just woke up and thought, do you know what? I'm going to do something like crazy generous because that's one of my values. Just be generous. And then so bizarre because after I did this, I finished editing today's podcast with Lisa and she was talking about giving people above and beyond. And I thought, oops, I accidentally did that. So I surprise emailed those 5 people and I said, thank you so much for buying the $99 first module of this 4-module course. Do you know what? I'm going to give you the entire course, the whole rest of the course when it comes out next year for free. Yes, free. Who doesn't love free? But not just free for no reason. Free because I believe in you to not just write that thing, but get it out into the world. Hey, then today I thought I'm doing the intro for this podcast, and my poor little lovely podcast listeners may not even know about this. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to put it out for 7 days and 7 days only and see, do any of you guys? Now, you already know about the free, so it's kind of cheating. You know that I'm really big on telling people off for cheating because I want to cheat too sometimes. But the point is that you now know you're going to get the whole thing for $99. And I'm curious, do you want it? The Children's Book Author Blueprint, it's going to cover writing, publishing, marketing, and building your brand and business. 4 modules. They're going to come out next year, all of them. The writing part's happening next week. If you can't make it live, do not stress. It's all recorded. And did I mention that every week for the next 4 weeks during this live course, there's going to be a live Q&A where you get to ask me anything and everything, and I'm going to coach you directly in your story writing process. This is cool. So, don't tell anybody else. Only if destiny had you listening to this and you're getting shivers up and down your spine, otherwise do not go to elenapage.com/learn, and 5 spots. If you want them, they're there. If no one takes them, hurrah, hooroo, it doesn't matter. The 5 people who are booked in are going to experience it. And don't stress if it's not the right time, because timing, I know, is a big piece of this, particularly when it comes to writing. It will be released officially next year and available for sale. So, if it's not now, it'll be then, and it'll be fine. But if you do want it now, then jump online. I'm giving you 7 days and then the cart closes for 2024. And one last thing about that, but most people always put all their effort into marketing and publishing. And yes, it's true that we think if we can publish and market something, then it'll all be great. But if you don't write something that's decent in the first place, then you're going to waste all your time publishing and marketing something that maybe nobody wants to buy. So get the writing part right first, and then honestly, the rest of it becomes a lot simpler. Now enjoy today's show. Welcome back to the Children's Book Author Podcast with me, your host, Eleanor Page. And I normally pick a wonderful adjective to describe my guest, but I swear to you, there is none in the dictionary that captures the personality and the vibrancy of my guest today. So perhaps we'll have to make up our own word as part of our creative challenge. I am joined by none other than Lisa Glanz. To some of you, you won't know who she is, but to those of you who love to draw and know anything about sketching and drawing and graphics and all things creative, you will definitely know her. I don't always read my intro, but I'm definitely going to read today's bio of Lisa because it is jam-packed and has so many things in there that I'm going to ask her about. So here it goes. Bear with me. Lisa Glanz is a full-time illustrator with a devoted eagerness in helping others achieve their creative goals. In addition to creating professional digital tools for artists, Lisa loves teaching and sharing her knowledge, gained both as a business owner, love that, and artist. Lisa knows how difficult the creative journey can be and loves making it easier for others by teaching what she's learned along the way. Her courses and products help you gain more knowledge, build confidence, so important, and produce work you're proud of. Lisa, you have nailed that bio. Welcome so much to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm so delighted to finally be here. It's been quite difficult for us to kind of, meet up. But yeah, I'm very excited. So excited.
Well, you are such a busy person. And truly, I say this with all of my heart, your genuine devotion to what you do, you share your journey, the difficult parts as well as the parts where you really succeed so open-heartedly. And I think that's why so many people connect to you so broadly. And before we got on air, I did say, oh my gosh, I'm interviewing someone like who's a celebrity. And you were like, what?
So that really means a lot. But truthfully, I guess it's because I've been at I don't know how to say it, like right at the bottom in terms of how you feel you've got such a big mountain to climb. I know that sensation. I know that feeling so well. In fact, yeah, we can talk about it later, how it almost crippled me. So I get it. And I wish there was a easier, better, faster way to help everybody fast track through that. So that's my goal. If I can help somewhere along the way.
Yeah, well, let's start there because I want to hear that story, after I've gotten my hype out of the way and now we settle down into all the beautiful, wonderful, truthful details of what a creative journey looks like. It has moments for me where it feels like I'm getting up somewhere and then I think, did I get up anywhere? Have I lost the plot? Am I making all this up? Am I wasting my time? Like, how's your journey been? Start at the very beginning. How did you get? I was going to say, how did you get to be Lisa Glanz? But that's not the right question, is it?
No, because I'm still the same person, but yeah, just been through all those creative troubles that we all do. Well, I'll kind of speed through the first section, which I have to mention. So I always wanted to do something creative, but sadly, my dad didn't think that that was a good route as a career. So I first studied something that was definitely not for me, which was architecture. I thought that was kind of like the medium road, like a little bit of creativity, but kind of pleasing my dad. Yeah, so I dropped out after 8 months and then studied graphic design, which of course he thought was a bad idea. But again, that was just one step closer to being more creative. Did that for most of my adult career. And then I just had this niggling thing continuously nagging at me. And I'm sure everybody listening to this can knows exactly what I mean. Like there's got to be more. I want to do something, more creative, something like follow my truth closer to what I should be doing. And yeah, so I took the plunge. I essentially carried on my graphic design because by then I'd already created my own business as a graphic designer. And then did the selling of my own work on the side. I started doing graphic packs, like logo design and flowers and that kind of stuff. Um, and that was very difficult. Those first two, I would say 2 years, first 2 years were really difficult juggling both job and that on the side. But eventually that's the side hustle, if I want to call it that, which I don't really like using that word, became so more successful than my graphic design business that I ended up, kind of quitting that and then focusing on that, my illustration full time. But in between that, I didn't really have time to process that whole thing of, am I good enough? Should I be doing this? I just followed it. So then when I finally did take the plunge and do that full time, oh my goodness, then those emotions came flooding in. Like, what are you doing? You don't know what you're doing. You've never been trained. What are you even in the space for? To a point where I would say that if in that next year, there was a lot of crying, I can tell you that. A lot of crying, a lot of moaning to my partner. He just told me, like, what's your problem? You're doing what you love. And the biggest issue that I had was I thought I was too late. I thought I wasn't good enough. I didn't have the skills to pursue it. I didn't know what I was doing. All those kinds of emotions. And I got to say, it was touch and go at one point where I thought, have I made a mistake? But yeah, I persevered. I persevered through that. I pushed through, and here we are today. It sounds so easy, but it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like you've arrived anywhere either. Like you're still in the
No,
process of becoming at all times, isn't it? So, so even though,
absolutely.
yeah, we talk about, what you went through just to get to this amount of good enough, because tomorrow you're
Mm.
going to build new amazing things, I'm sure, and then it's going to rear up again in some way, isn't it?
Oh, yes. In fact, I have recently had a little bit of a wobble because, yeah, just being amongst, as you said, like you start being elevated or put into a different category, the more popular, I guess, you become. And then you think to yourself, what am I doing around these like unbelievably talented people? Why am I even mentioned in the same kind of, level? It feels really weird to me. And obviously I'm not used to that. And you have those doubts again. You start thinking, am I good enough? But yeah, I just when I do feel like that, I focus on the things that do make me unique and the things that I've kind of like really stuck to as much as I can, which is try and be as much as me as I can be, if that makes sense. So don't try and copy anybody, don't try and follow a trend that doesn't suit you, don't step out of something, out of your comfort, I mean, not comfort zone, because that's another topic. Don't step out of your uniqueness, in order to follow what you think other people want. And yeah, I've really concentrated hard on just retaining me. And I think that's served me well so far, I'd like to think.
Yeah, that's such brilliant, spot on advice. I feel exactly the same way. That in some ways we look at talent, but that's so subjective anyway,
Totally.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And if anything, in each level that you grow, how true to yourself are you staying? And sometimes you might be changing, like what I heard you say earlier is you were changing from that graphic design to that illustration.
Yeah.
How true did you stay to that, even though another part of you was kicking and screaming, your dad's voice going, ugh, you're doing that,
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
So just staying so true. And yet you do manage to get there. I see myself in you at times that it looks like I'm doing things so smoothly, whereas behind the scenes I'm kicking and screaming. So, what is that in you that no matter what challenge, internal or externals, happening for you, you do get to the next, I don't know, bridge, let's call it that, I suppose, you manage to get there. What is that?
Yes. I think for me personally, my journey to get, to at least have what I've built was so difficult. And we all go through difficult journeys, creatively, mentally, business-wise, etc. But yeah, so for me, because that journey was so difficult, I protect it so much by honoring the fact that I've got to stick to my guns, and it served me this far. I know it's going to serve me again. I will get through this. And the other thing as well is also having the ability to understand that the ickiness that you're feeling, or the bump in the road that experiencing, it'll pass. It will pass. It may take longer, it may take shorter, compared to the last time. But the point is, through all those experiences and those years that you're alive, you do realize that all these things do pass. And it's good to remind yourself when you are in that position. And that's the same reason why I think when people email me and they say, oh, I'm too old to start illustrating, or I'm too old to start this. And you might get the same with your people who, write to you about writing their own books, etc. You're never too old. In fact, I actually think it's an advantage because you've already gone through so many experiences in life, and you've also got to know yourself better and know how to handle those difficult times. And I think that's so crucial. I think when you're younger, you're kind of like a mess. You're an emotional wreck, So being older and having that sort of stable emotional way to self-soothe yourself, I guess. It's an advantage because it's those things that get you through those rough patches. And of course, the main thing that I have to mention, which goes without saying, is that if you really love what you do and it's like your everything, then the difficulty or the trouble that you go through to get through to the other side, it's worth a fight. And you'll do it regardless, I guess.
Yeah, so true. So do you still draw now and go, did I draw that? Could I have done that better?
Oh, yeah. All the time, especially if I haven't picked up, a pencil for, say, like a week. Say, like, I've been busy with business stuff and that kind of thing, and I haven't picked up a pencil in a week. My first go is generally quite bad. It's not great. And then I have this, I'm a human being, so I have all those same things like, oh my goodness, I've forgotten how to draw. Now what? So it's quite something. It's weird that we do that.
I actually love that. I love that sentence. Yeah, I love that sentence. That's actually priceless. Oh my gosh, I've forgotten how to draw.
Yeah.
So
it's
good.
just ridiculous. Yeah. So then I kind of, okay, that ugly drawing's done now. That's great. It's behind me. And then I carry on. Sometimes if the session's really going bad, then I stop and I walk away and then I'll come back to it. But generally I know, you're going to have your moments where it's not going to go well. And sometimes I show that on social media because I also want to show people that it's okay. It's okay to do yucky work,
The only problem with that is that your yucky work's not yucky to anybody else other than you, I hate to say, or I love to say, because I've never, ever seen anything that you've made.
Really? Oh,
yucky.
No, goodness.
Well,
there's...
Go.
No, I was going to say there's a course that I show, I think it's I think it's the one where it's finding your style, your own, signature sort of illustration style. And I show work that before I even was doing any graphic design or anything. So like, I think it was like 20-year-old work, and it is quite appalling to me. And it was horrifying to show it. But I thought it's such a good thing to see how people, progress. And I want to show people that if you persevere and you keep at it, you will improve. It's like kind of like a law of nature. It's going to happen. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. But you do have to go back to your old self and be like, you did a good job back then, girl, for the stage you were at. You
Yes,
did
exactly.
good. That's celebrating yourself at every stage,
Of course.
It's the same in writing. Like, so many writers want to go back and change their earlier books. And it's like, just leave them, because they're a sort of time that you've caught in space. And some people actually like those books just the way you wrote them then, even though they're, quote, not as good as the ones you write today.
Yes.
It's
absolutely. And the thing is, like, I mean, I recall this particular drawing that I'm thinking of that I show in the class, that's so old. I recall at the time loving it. I thought it was the best thing ever, So suppose there's a part of there's going to be people out there that love that, because you loved it. So there's definitely going to be somebody else, I'm sure, that will love it. And it's just this urge to go back and kind of almost, remove history and make it all the same again. But no, we've got to, you got to have all those stages of development. Good.
Yeah, 100%. So I've got this thing that I can't ever quite put my finger on, and I don't know that anyone's answered this for me. See how you go with it, okay? So what makes the difference between, now keep in mind my wording's not going to be quite right on this, but like, I'm looking at one illustration that might have sort of scratchy, scraggly lines or whatever, and it looks professional. And then there's another illustration that's got scratchy, scraggly lines, and something about it does not look quite professional, but I can't work out what that is. Does that make any sense, what I'm talking about?
It does. You see, it depends. It's difficult to, how do I say, give an analysis without seeing the actual artwork, because I'd be able to pinpoint what the differences would be.
Interesting.
But generally, it would be things like the choice of color, probably lack in value, like there's no contrast, so the eye doesn't know where to go. It'll be maybe there's the person's, it's obvious that the person doesn't feel completely confident in a particular technique that they're trying to portray, whereas the other one looks like it's just part of them, It could be things like maybe one's trying to copy a style, whereas the other one absolutely is the style, So there's a few things you can look at. But often it is definitely the palette and value is an issue. Yeah.
Interesting. I have actually watched you critique. I can't remember where I did it then. I can't remember where I've done it, but I've watched you critique other people's artwork. And it's incredible how you know exactly what's off. I'm like, wow, how did you develop that? And one little adjustment and the whole piece changes.
Yeah. I think it's just experience, because quite honestly, it certainly doesn't come from training, because as I said, I haven't been trained. But I think it's just, it probably is very much down to the fact that you made those same mistakes as you were developing and learning and improving. So, like, oh, I know that. I used to do that. That's why I can fix that kind of thing. So yeah, it probably has a lot to do with that, I guess. And also studying. I mean, like, it's like I would probably read something and think it was perfectly fine, and then you would read it and go, hang on a minute, that's off. So it's definitely, I guess, how well you know your subject matter.
The great one is my daughter's in year 12, and they're all writing creative pieces, and her friends will send through their creative pieces, and I'll be like, AI wrote that. And she'll write back, did you write that with AI? And they go, no, I wrote it myself. And I'm like, no, they didn't. You can just tell. Yeah.
You can. Yeah. You see? No, there's an expert opinion.
Yeah, really interesting. But at what point are you an expert, like you said, right? I suppose
Yeah,
so long as you know more than the person below you, then
exactly. That's the thing. I mean, often people think just exactly that. Often people think they can't teach or train somebody else, but if you know a bit more than the next person, of course you can. You'll be helping them along the way. So yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
And
Mm,
so explain to me, because you are self-taught, correct me if I'm
mm.
wrong.
Yes,
What did that process look like for you? And like, what advice would you have for others? So, for example, before I let you answer,
yes.
if I'm learning how to draw, and I must confess, I'm probably stuck at the level that I've been, doing all these tutorials, and I make what they make, and it looks good because they've shown me how to make it, and that's great. And I've experimented a little bit on my own, but then I go, what should I do next? And then I don't
Mm,
practice every day like
mm.
I know I should do. So there's, tell me your journey, and if you could go back, what would you tell yourself to do differently?
Well, you've pretty much described, I think, 99% of people. And the biggest issue that they have, and I'm not sure how I figured this out because I didn't do this. I'll explain now. The biggest issue they have is that they don't have a focus. They haven't thought, okay, so what do I want to improve upon? Because if you just say drawing, that's far too broad, because you could be drawing anything, right? And you could be improving upon anything. There's so many avenues you could take. So what I did was I decided to focus on improving one particular thing. And at the time, I had all these like ideas in my mind. I actually wanted to, and I still do, want to be able to write my own children's book. So it's the whole thing of like I had all these ideas in my head of these animals acting out these scenes, like mice cooking and baking a cake, or I don't know, bunnies having a tea party in the forest. And all these ideas in my mind I couldn't translate onto paper, and it was incredibly frustrating, as I'm sure if you're still kind of at the beginning stage of your learning. And what I did was, okay, well then I realized, right, I've got to get good at drawing animals doing human-like activities, and that's what I focused on. And then I started seeking out, okay, well, who's good at that? And we know that animators are really good at that because they have to do that all day. Like, they've show a movie, clips in movies where animals are doing all sorts of, weird and wonderful things. So that's what I did. So I got some animation books. I looked at the work of Disney animators and I essentially studied like what they did. But I didn't want to copy them because I was acutely aware that, you don't want to copy somebody's style because then there's no point in that. So I would study that, put the book away, and then, okay, I'm going to give it a go myself kind of thing. And that's what I focused on. I would say a good year and a half or 2 years, I was really like determined and focused to get better at that. Yeah, and it's helped me tremendously in terms of understanding why it's good to know anatomy to some degree, how limbs operate, what they do, that kind of thing. And then, of course, taking emotion and putting that into the character. Yeah, so definitely. So number one, got to have a focus. If you don't have a focus, you are just going to be going from, place to place to place. And tutorials are good. They are great because they teach you a lot of things that you wouldn't have tried on your own, but you got to then go and apply that to your own work. So watch it and then put it away and then spend time actually kind of, incorporating all those things you've learned into your own drawings. So yeah, if I had to do it differently, the only thing I'd say is I would have liked to have done it more. So been more diligent in drawing every single day, for, more hours, I guess. Yeah. I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. A
Yeah.
lot of sense. Yeah, when you say it, I'm like, duh. Like, it's kind of almost like, of course, hello. What do you want to draw? Why do you want to draw? Like, what exactly are you trying to achieve with
Yes.
it?
But a lot of people don't do like that simple exercise of understanding their end goal. They haven't actually quite thought that through. And it's quite normal.
Yeah, it really is. But having said that, you make a lot of Procreate brushes. Procreate's like this amazing drawing software. I think it's called, is the right word. And you have a lot of sort of stencils aren't probably the right words, but kind of templates that people can use as a starting point to actually, get better at, because a lot of people love the coloring bit, but don't spend as much time doing the actual learning how to sketch bit. Is that what you find as well?
Yes, I think they feel intimidated. Like, and what's for me, I always want to get people drawing. So if there's a hurdle, if there's a blockage, and I can somehow get them to get past that blockage, that's my goal. So a lot of people don't sit down and draw because they're overwhelmed. Like, okay, I don't know, I want to draw a horse on a bicycle, but I don't even know how to begin to do that. So where do I start? So it's too difficult. So they walk away, So some of the stuff that I create are for people like that. They're basically stamps. What we call stamps, which are essentially outlines or templates that have little bodies, little animal bodies doing particular activities, whether it's like running, sitting, cycling, walking, that kind of stuff. And then you can add your own little heads to them, like whether it's a cat or a dog or a giraffe or a whatever. So it's really helpful from that point of view to at least get your foot in the door and feel a bit more confident in drawing animals in movements and that kind of stuff. And I think when people start feeling a bit more confident, then they start venturing out and they start trying their own. I've literally seen that, which is really wonderful. Like people will buy that set and then a couple of months later they're emailing me like work that they've now started making of their own. So it's wonderful. It's so nice to see people's progress. So I find that's really helpful. And then another thing that I have is it's called a character creator. So that's more like general shape, like organic shapes. And that particular one I really encourage for kind of sparking your imagination. So it would be like stamping out a shape and then looking at it and thinking, okay, so what could that be? It's either going to be, I don't know, maybe a mouse eating a little bit of cheese. Maybe it's actually the face of an old man. Maybe it's, I don't know, a pot with a cat inside or something, so it basically is a starting point. So you don't, faced with this like blank canvas thing staring at you, which I think a lot of people really struggle with. So that was the goal of these tools.
Yeah, it makes sense. And what I'm hearing from you is really encouraging people to not be frightened of their own imagination. And, like the more I've learned about drawing, the more I've learned, about, in particular, I think you said it perfectly, shape language. And that actually this quirky shape can be all sorts of things. It can be like an old man with a gut and two cute little stumpy legs coming out, like especially in children's books. It's like we don't have to draw realistic, actually.
No. And that's the beauty about all these things, like, when it comes to illustrating, especially for kids' books, like you literally can, you can create anything, any world that you want. Recently, somebody posted a comment and said, how do I've got a signature palette, color palette. How do I now use that in my children's book illustrations? Because, a tree is green, but I don't have green in my palette, and sky is blue. And, and the first thing I want to say is like, why does the sky have to be blue? Why does the tree have to be green? These are kids' books. You can literally create your own world. So even if a man has a head and a shoulder and a torso and legs, it can be any shape. So I've often seen the most successful illustrating, children's illustrators that don't even use your classic shapes for things. And they're fantastic. They're beautiful. So it's definitely, as you said, it's kind of initiating your own, well, at least recognizing your own imagination, putting to paper, not being afraid of that. No one's going to And you are your worst judge, I guess. Yeah, so people love it if you just create from the heart. They just know it. They know it's like, you know, yeah, they resonate, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do find, because what I do, I mean, I'm supposed I do draw as well, but not as much as I should be. But what I do
Join the
do,
club.
yes, is canvas painting, and I paint trees. So
Oh, wow.
they're quite unusual. They're not real trees. They're sort of flat and unusual. But I'm so confident when I do that. And I don't know what that is, but I don't have the same confidence when I write or do anything else. But when I paint a tree, I'm so confident in what I'm doing. I don't know what that is. It's like it speaks to me, and I trust my decisions. I guess that's what I want to say. I'm just sort of thinking as I'm doing it, that every decision I make, not that it's necessarily the right decision, but it's my decision. And if it changes along the way, that's okay. And then I know when it's done. It's so weird.
Okay, so I have to ask you, how long have you been drawing trees, painting trees?
I I think I've been painting them for like 20 years, but I did take a big break in between.
Okay. Do
And
you
actually,
think you had,
yep, go.
do you think you had the same confidence when you first started painting trees?
I don't actually.
Okay, so that's the thing. The reason why you feel confident is because you've been doing it for so long and you know them so intimately. When I first started drawing bunnies, obviously I didn't have a clue and I wasn't confident. And before you know it, you get so intimate, I guess is the right word, with the particular animal, that your drawings become, as you said, like every stroke you make, you become confident and you don't question your ability because it just, the topic inside and out. So I think that's crucial to having that confidence. And that's why you probably find that your trees are, come so naturally to you, and you know when to stop. You know yourself, how you feel when you create trees. It's all those intricate relationships that you have with the topic that contribute to the whole experience, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. My voice has gone a pitch different because I had a choking fit. So don't mind that I'm talking in my nose. I will try to bring it back down for some reason. Yeah, I think you nailed it when you said that. It is, as you say, the more you do it, each stroke, the confidence, the knowing, and one of the things that I do is every step of the way, I have to take a giant step back and look at it as a whole and see how it makes me feel. And I'll know from a distance whether something's off.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Oh, completely. Because you see, at that stage, because it sounds like that you are so familiar with the topic and what you're trying to achieve when you paint trees, that you have also the ability to have a critical eye looking at your work. And that's something that I think a lot of us struggle with. Like, we don't really have the ability to be able to assess our own work. And that's actually, there's a couple of tricks that artists do, which I don't do myself and I should. Like, they often flip their work. So that gives them an idea, like, oh, that looks weird the other way, and it shouldn't. It should still make sense. So that's there's a couple of things that you can do to actually critically assess your work. And often, like, I mean, I posted the other day, I posted a fox on my Instagram, and there was just something off and I couldn't quite figure it out, but I posted it anyway. And then I realized, oh, he's missing a tail.
Oh, how funny.
And the thing is, like, you're so close to it that you don't even realize, you're missing something. But you obviously have trained yourself to be able to assess your work. That's why you can see what's off, what you need to fix. It's brilliant. It's a really good skill to have. Yeah.
So it's just allowing yourself to apply that to other areas as you grow into them. and not expecting yourself to just have it magically because you want it magically.
No. Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's the thing. I mean, we always want to fast track to the end, and yeah, it's unfortunately there isn't a silver bullet. There are things that you can do to fast track yourself, but there is no way around practice. It's like writing. I mean, there just really is no way around, writing a book. You got to sit down and write it.
Yeah. There is, however, and I do not say this lightly, okay, there is, however, something magical about your Procreate brushes. I don't know what it is, and it's not just me. It's a lot. I can count 10 just off the top of my head, other people who are learning how to draw, and we've bought every single brushes that exist in the universe, probably over $1,000 worth. But there's something about your brushes that even if you sort of can't draw, you can draw because of how you develop the brushes. So I don't know what that is. What is the Lisa Glanz brush effect? What do you honestly think it is? I know it's hard because you're talking about your own brushes, but what do you honestly think is in your brushes that makes them do it?
Well, that's amazing feedback. Thank you. Wow. I would say I know my process is a little bit different to most people's when I create. And often people say, "Oh, can you teach me how you make your brushes?" That's the thing. I wish I could, because it's like a mad scientist experiment in the making. So I add a little bit of this, and then I do a little bit of that. And look, I mean, one brush can literally take 2 weeks, for me to be happy with. I will tweak it to death. I will try every single setting and grain change and whatever. And it's tiny tweaks until I'm absolutely happy. So I think the biggest difference is I always start with an end picture in mind. I don't just, let's create a whole bunch of, I don't know, gouache brushes. For me, it's like I always have, so how do you want this gouache painting to look? And then I reverse engineer. Then I start creating brushes that I think is going to achieve that particular look, instead of going from the other way, that way, if that makes sense, from this side to that side. So I think that might be the difference in my brushes, that I guess that maybe is a bit different to how other people would make a brush. I always start with an end thing in mind. And then, as I said, reverse engineer to... I start with a chocolate cake, like a juicy chocolate cake. And then I go, so how do I make that juicy chocolate cake? What do I put in there to make it juicy? That
makes a lot of sense. And that's the second time you've said that, reverse engineering. I don't know what I just did, but suddenly balloons flew up.
Yes, in the background looks amazing.
What was that? I didn't touch anything. In fact, I'm nowhere near that. That was the
strangest. Oh, it's so funny.
Maybe it's my birthday on the computer.
Yeah.
It's not, but there's literally, and I'd be so curious to see if that was recorded.
That is hilarious.
So strange. Anyways, thank you, Zoom. That was lovely. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's that reverse engineering, exactly in some ways what you said earlier, have a focus, have an end in mind. Do you do the same thing when you because you're not, what I loved is that you mentioned you're not just an artist, that you are a fantastic artist, you're a business owner. And I think that's often the part that creatives forget, if I'm being totally honest.
Sadly.
So speak a bit to that, and why you've made certain decisions along the way that have helped you become a good business owner, not just a famous creative, let's say, for example, right? But, and a good business, correct me if I'm wrong, I always think of these two words, which is profit and impact. The more profit you make, the more impact you make. You have a good, successful business. Am I right or am I wrong? Talk to me about that.
Oh, definitely. It's I mean, your effort that you put in needs to yield some kind of results. There's no point in putting in something that, because that's the mistake people make. They spend so much time, for example, illustrators, they spend so much time creating Instagram posts, instead of actually sitting down and thinking, okay, so how am I actually going to earn money? So that's, they'll spend 4 hours a day doing a Pinterest on an Instagram post instead of actually 4 hours a day contacting clients, and that kind of thing. So that's definitely, how are you going to spend your time? But the thing that I think helped me a lot was right in the beginning of my whole journey of actually becoming a full-time illustrator / creating my own products, was having a clear understanding who my customer was. So again, there's an example of going to the end and reverse engineering. So who are you speaking to? Who do you want to sell to? Because you have to be specific. You have to get specific. It's like writing a children's book. Children are 0 to 18. Like, who are you writing for? Are you writing for a 6-year-old or are you writing for an 8-year-old? And that's the thing with illustrating and creating your own digital products is exactly the same thing. Get very specific who your audience is. And once you understand who your audience is, then you can actually start creating things that they really want, need, somehow you can help them. So if you can basically match that want and need, I have got like a whole formula which I can't remember now. So if you can basically answer their needs and give them something that they desire at the same time, then you've got a winner. You only know that if you understand your customer and really truly understand them. And because if you understand their pain points and you understand their needs, you'll be able to create things that will really service that particular audience. So from a business point of view, it's crucial. It's all very well. We all want to sit down and just do art that's, lights us up and, we all live in la la land and create what we want. But we have to make a living. So you have to think like that, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, sometimes it's a good thing because it can actually help you keep you focused. And because a lot of people go, well, what must I create next? Well, who are you creating for? And then that'll determine what you should create next. So,
Yeah, I love that. It's really about what are you creating? Who are you creating it for? I don't think a lot of people even ask that.
They don't. And that it's fascinating because I once had a conversation with, another artist who was pretty far down the line in terms of having their own business and that kind of thing. But they were wanting to grow their own website. And I asked them, so who's your audience? And I thought by then they would know, like, so who's your target audience? And tell me a bit about them. Like, what's your customer like? And they just looked at me, what do you mean? Well, surely like who the person is. Like you almost need to like your trees. You need to intimately know who your customer is and their habits are, what they want, and that kind of thing. So it was an eye-opener for me to realize that is actually not a given. People don't actually do that process, and it's crucial. It's almost like the first step.
And if they do it, they tend to do it just based on demographic type information. And one of the things that I'm really big on is you should actually do it like a little bit of that, but actually do it on psychographic information.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know?
Yes. Definitely, because that determines the behavior of the person, which gives you insight into, again, going back to what they need or what their pain points are. Like, for example, if in the early days, if I was doing a set that was targeted like a watercolor flower set, and I was thinking, okay, so who would use something like that? It would be somebody creating wedding invitations or maybe a baby announcement, birth announcement. Then I would think, okay, so how would they use that? How would they use that graphic in their application? Then I would create stuff that make it easier for them. Like maybe it's frames, maybe it's, bouquets that they can use at the top and that kind of stuff. So when you have an understanding of how somebody is actually going to interact with your product, it gives you a better idea of how you can go beyond what you think you just need to, like in other words, not only giving them the basics, but you can elevate your product even more by fully understanding what they need and then supplying that, going further than you have to, essentially, because that's been my goal. Every product I make, I want to go beyond what the customer expects from me. And then I'm hoping because of that, they will come back because they know that, okay, this person, cares about their product or whatever, and they're going to give me more than what I can get from whoever, Joe Soap down the road.
Yeah, it's a great point. Actually, I recently did this exercise where the person who was teaching it said, for this thing that you've made, what price would you put it at? And, let's imagine you said $30 or even $300, depending what you were teaching, right? Or sharing. And they said, now put an extra zero on it. And it was like, oh, they said, now make the product with the extra zero. And then after you've made the product, now take that extra zero away.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that is so good. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say, that you're...
Definitely, yeah. You've got to, I think if you want to stand out, because, let's face it, the every industry, no matter which industry, and is competitive. So it's no point in competing. Always think of it like the cheap mass-produced market. Like you don't want to be competing that, because you will never win. You always want to be competing in a market where people are going to a particular brand, person, product, whatever, because they understand that they're going to get value. They understand they're going to get quality. They understand that they're going to get something unique, and that's where you want to be competing against. And then because understand those three things, you want to really ramp those things up, and you want to give them more than they expected. And so that's the business side of things that you have to really think about. And I'm not going to lie, it's hard work. It's extra work. It really is. So I know my brush sets take me like 2-3 months to put together. Somebody else can knock one out in 2 weeks. And that is not me. I'm not that person, because I want to really firstly create a quality product. Then I want to show them and give them inspiration on like how to use that product. And then I want to give them something where they can walk away feeling confident in using that product. So that 2-week, brush pack is not going to have that. And that's why, although I'm only producing far less, people, as you said, they know they can trust my brushes, so they come to me, and that's a big compliment, because it means then that kind of extra mile that I've gone through is paying off.
And even if you like release a new one tomorrow, and I don't really need another brush set, but I go, it's Lisa's brush set. So we repurchase. We're like lifetime customers, which is fantastic.
That's amazing,
isn't it?
Thank you.
That's the kind of what you want to aim for, isn't it? But I am tempted to ask, okay, and see what you think about this question. All right, that so many creatives, want to be somebody, like they want to draw things and it to be licensed on every important product in the world, and that everyone wants to buy a mug with the thing that they drew, and that, like that when they think of an artist, they think of, and actually you've become that, but you've become that, it seems to me, not by wanting to be the famous, successful artist, but by helping other people. You actually license your work so others can put them on products. And, like, who are you? Like, what is that? Because that's unusual, and I say that with the utmost respect. And that's what I want to be more of, because I think I am a little bit of the other one, if I'm completely honest. And I want to be more of that in-service person, that loves to help others elevate, and then your work gets elevated too. So has that always been who you are, or did you reach a point where you said, this is what I have to become if I'm to have a successful business?
No, I think it's been a natural kind of evolution, because when I first sat down and because that was another important thing you got to do. If you have a goal in mind, you got to sit down and really visualize your day-to-day existence. Like, how does it feel to actually be that person doing that particular job, day to day. So it sounds really cheesy, but honestly, I really recommend it because I literally am living that life that I visualized back then. So one of the things that I wrote down was I want to help. I want to help people because I have an overwhelming sense of that. I really want to help people. Like when I see something that they might be doing wrong or they need help with, I just have this urge to like, I'll help you. I don't know why. It's just it is me. So I have one of my goals was I want to help people and I want to draw. Like how does that like? I mean, it just at the time I just didn't know how those two things were going to sit together. And oh, the other thing was because I'd come from a client background, I was servicing clients every single day with my graphic design business. And the other thing was I didn't want clients. I didn't want to have to now sit down and work with clients every single day, that help that I felt wasn't for clients, if that made sense. It was like for other people like me. So that was pretty clear back then. I just didn't know how that was going to shape out. And over time, I've realized, okay, so this is how I'm helping people. I'm showing them what I did to get where I am, and hopefully they can also get where they want to be. So I think it's when you share freely about all the things you've struggled with and how you want to show people how you can do it too. You really can do it too. It just all the other stuff comes like the success and whatever is like a byproduct, I don't know. It's like a weird thing. It's like I put it to you this way: if everybody was living their true self and happy and fulfilling their goals, like whether it's like their creative goals or their emotional goals, wouldn't the world be like the most amazing place? So I guess it's like my need to have the world happier.
That's your big picture vision. Yeah. It makes sense. Makes sense. But it is, like from a storytelling perspective, it's often asked, every good story has a hero and a mentor. And actually it's when you choose
Never thought of that.
Yeah. I've heard this. It's and so a lot of people who are being mentors deep down aren't. They actually want to be the hero. And
I see.
Does that make sense? Whereas to really be a good mentor, you actually have to have become the hero at some point, because you can't be a mentor. Like, Dumbledore had to have his own, fantastic things he did in Harry Potter before he could become Harry's mentor in that whole series, right? So you do have to kind of be the hero to become the mentor. But once you truly step into being the mentor, then you become the best at that. You are that really kind, generous teacher that is giving everything. Whereas I think until you make that distinction, a lot of creative people want to be the hero.
Oh, yes.
Because they're not, or they're not making money that way, they then go, I suppose I have to do teaching or whatever, or they failed at that. That's a horrible kind of misconception, that if you teaching something, it's because you failed at it, which is not actually true. To me, you actually sound like you're inherently that mentor. You are Dumbledore, the wizard. You are.
Yes, I would say that I feel a strong urge to, as I said, like to help people, and I'm not sure why. Like I think I get enjoyment out of watching other people feel good about their achievements or succeeding. It's it's a wonderful thing. Like when you see somebody else happy, it's like, oh, that feels so nice. I think I think that whole like hero thing, having this perception that okay, I'm going to put all my artwork's going to be in every shop and on every mug, and it's a lovely fantasy. It really is. But sadly, it is a fantasy for most artists, because it really is difficult to break through to that 1%, because there really is only 1% of artists out there that are famous enough to have their work on mugs or whatever, that clients are literally asking for their specific work because of who they are. That's not to say that people aren't licensing. Of course they are. They're licensing stuff everywhere, but it's not because of necessarily their name. It's often just because their artwork's great, which is just as good. It's just, I think this notion of I'm going to be like the next, big name in wherever shops, I think if you drop that ego thing, that need to be recognized, it's natural. It is natural. But if you drop that and you focus more on your skills and sharing your knowledge, I think the success comes naturally. I really do think that.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, one of the things that stands out about you, and I was dying to ask you, and I know we're a little over time, but I'm going to just steal a bit more of your time.
Yes, go
is that this sense of partnership that you have. So, whilst you do sell on your own website and you are building your own world of Lisa Glanz, which is an amazing website, by the way, like, oh my goodness, just go there for the visual beauty and the journey you're taking on. It's fantastic. And so many things that you offer on there, free tools and tutorials and, oh my gosh, so much stuff. But then you're fantastic at partnering with certain platforms like Skillshare and Design Cuts. And I even noticed on your website that you had a brand new thing, which I've got to book in for, which is one-on-one consultation.
Yes.
I thought, oh my God. So I'm putting the shout out, everybody, like get in before her diary fills up. But even that, when I clicked on that, took me to Super Peer. And I thought, I've never even heard of them. So, like you partner with these other platforms. Like where does that come from and how has that worked out for you? Like what's the great benefit of doing that?
Yeah, so it's important to know when a partnership is going to benefit you as much as it's going to benefit them. So I get approached very regularly to, sign up to somebody's marketplace, whatever, and I kind of always weigh up. I mean, you have to be in your business hat that needs to come on, and you have to go, okay, is this going to be worth it for me because obviously I need to put in the effort, and they're going to benefit from selling my products. Am I going to benefit? Is this going to be a great mutual partnership? If the answer is no, and I'm going to be doing more of the work, then I say no. But somebody like Design Cuts, for example, they align with my values very much. And since meeting Tom, who's the CEO of Design Cuts, my whole experience in this industry has changed so much. So we started the podcast together, Honest Designers. Podcast, we've done so much like collaboration in terms of like products and things like that. So it's important to know when a partner is actually going to elevate you. And if it's not working out, you must pull out. There's no point in dragging along and it's not working out. Yeah, so like for example, Skillshare is actually I had a break with them for quite a bit. I was they kind of elevate the people who do a lot of classes to top teacher sort of status. And there was a time where I felt pressurized to continuously create these classes so I could keep up with this so-called top teacher badge. And I just wasn't able to. And so I said to them, sorry, got to pull out. There's no point in killing myself. So then they reached out to me recently and asked me to make another class, and I said yes, okay, I'll do that. So you got to juggle things and know when things are going to work for you and not. But it can be very, very beneficial if you choose the right partner. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, Design Cuts is one of my favorite platforms in the world. I don't buy anything from anywhere else except for your website first, so that you get the most profit, and Design Cuts for other stuff. And but with Design Cuts, they're now teaching as well, and you're part of that.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about it, because I didn't get in on that first round.
Okay, so apparently they have opened their doors now to the public. So yes, so there's no more waiting list. So the Creative Club is essentially a learning platform that you have access to all the courses that they offer. And then they also have live events where they do things like group coaching. I actually have one on Friday. That's tomorrow. And things like workshops and that kind of stuff that is only to the members in Creative Club. And it's amazing because you get to interact with the teachers and you can ask them questions, you can submit your work, all sorts of things. So it's a very unique experience in terms of learning. And like, for example, places like Skillshare, you kind of watch their stuff and, you know, you walk away, there's no accountability, you don't feel like you're part of like a community, whereas this is very strongly community driven, and the people there, all the community members are amazing. They're so like supportive and lovely. So it's been really fun. And also Tom's working really hard on bringing some big names, you know, industry names. So it's amazing. Yeah, it feels great to be part of something like that. And if I hadn't met Tom, I wouldn't have been part of something so amazing. So
well, I actually heard Tom one time, I can't remember where, say that he spotted your early potential.
Yes.
At one point, you know, like it made it sound like you weren't quite there yet, but he spotted the potential, and I thought that's funny, you know. So I mean, you know, he's quite an extraordinary entrepreneur,
creative,
and just amazing. And the teachers on Design Cuts, and I don't say that lightly because I have no affiliation whatsoever, but you know, they're of a different caliber. Whereas on Skillshare, it can be a bit hit and miss. You know, like you can have some and you think, so you're kind of got to be a bit discerning. Whereas when you get to Design Cuts, you sort of go, okay, you know, I'm listening to what you're telling me.
It's great. His whole focus now. There's a good example actually of a businessman who has thought very much about the projection of their company and what they want to focus on. So he only takes products and courses that are of a particular quality. He doesn't, you know, as you said, where some marketplaces, they just take anything. So his focus was to really only serve up quality items, and it's paid off.
So let's finish up with this topic. I did hear you say that one day perhaps you're going to write a children's book. What will it take for that to happen?
That's a good question. I have actually written 2 already. It's, you know what it's like? It's that whole thing of when you're a graphic designer and you have to design your own logo. It's like the trauma is too intense because the pressure of getting it right is just too much. I think the same applies for the books that I've written, to actually illustrate them. It just seems like a mountain is just too much. It's ridiculous, isn't it? What is with that? But yes, I have written 2, but I still need to illustrate them. Funny that.
Awesome. And you have a really great class that I did called How to Draw Cute. Did I maybe see that on Design Cuts as a freebie or something? But it was how to draw cute characters, and it was so good. So maybe finish up by telling us some good tips about how to draw cute characters that are perfect for children's books.
Okay, so always focus on how much emotion you can get into the character, because people tend to go to their face first. And the biggest tip that I can give you when it comes to emotion, make it clear. And the way you can make it clear is to keep it simple. So think about that those very simple drawings of a smiley face and 2 little eyes. That's happy. Laughing is your mouth open. So people try and get too fancy and smart when they try and show emotion, but just keep the line work really simple to make that emotion clear. The next thing is to make a character cuter, you tend to want to make their heads bigger than their bodies, or at least kind of the same size. Like a little kid, you know, you want their heads to be quite big compared to the rest of them. Obviously, you want to go for balance, depending on the age of the kid as well. Often using big eyes will make a character cuter. Of course, accessories. Always think of what can you add to that character to really ramp up the cuteness. And And then I always like adding what I call supporting characters. So if I'm drawing a big bear, for example, I might throw in a tiny little mouse that's kind of sitting next to him or on his shoulder, or, somehow interacting with him or the scene. So those extra little supporting characters really make a big difference to the final sort of scene.
Oh, such good tips. Such good tips. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. I've learned so much. And it's just wonderful to speak to you directly and to hear your big pictures. Everything's going to be reverse engineered from now on in my world. So, fantastic. Cute, shape, so many bits and pieces there that I learned. And for everybody listening along, go check Lisa out. All the links will be in the show notes, but as a base, lisaglanz.com, you cannot forget it. Go on there, get the free bits and bobs, which is so many amazing free resources that you give out. And thank you so much once again for being on the show.
Oh, it's a great pleasure. And thank you for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
And we'll have to have you back on when that first children's book comes out.
Oh, yes, definitely. That might be in 10 years' time, but yes, why not?
Did you find that interview valuable? Great! Now be an awesome human and go and leave a review, because it helps the podcast out so much. Want to read the show notes? Check out thechildren'sbookauthorpodcast.com. Want to find out more about me, Eleanor Page? Find me at eleanorpage.com or come and say hello on social at Eleanor Page Books. Until next time, keep writing and keep learning.